Hello YouTube. So I want to talk about Stellaris again. So you can clearly see this is gameplay that I have captured recently. Um, so in one of my most popular videos on this channel, I talk about how Stellaris is ultimately a boring game. I still continue to play it, of course. There are elements of the game like the tech tree and really the expansive nature of the gameplay makes it still worthwhile to play, but it's still ultimately boring. Um, there are many issues that I would like to see resolved. Um, and honestly, the DLCs that have been released recently over the years, they do not seem to be willing to incorporate some very needed um, gameplay elements that one finds in other space games. So in this gameplay, you can clearly see that I'm fighting against a pre-made empire, the Jet. Um, is that what it's called? No, the Jujema Dominion. Okay. So, um, one of the problems in Stellaris is that I don't really get a sense of the war exhaustion. War exhaustion should be like what it is in Civilization, where when you're at war and you lose ships, it should cause the populace back home to worry about that they're not going to be seeing their loved ones again. It should actually have some actual impact. You should be able to win a game through attrition, but not just simply through through a bar on a screen. It should actually impact the way that you fight the war. So in Civilization 3, for example, which came out almost 20 years ago, there is a element in that game. There's a gameplay mechanic where the where you have something called war weariness. And this idea, this mechanic works in that when you're at war and you have a government that's either a republic or a democracy, generally if you start losing soldiers in aircraft or whatever, or ships or whatever, it starts to build war weariness amongst the populace. In a democracy, war weariness is actually very crippling. If you have too much, if you have too many casualties, you could actually have a situation where the populace actually rises up and overthrows the government, and you're in a state of anarchy for a couple of turns in the game. This is something that I would like to see in Stellaris, because right now it feels like to me that you can just throw ships and it doesn't matter, and it should matter, because how many people are on those ships? I mean, it shouldn't be the way how the game shows the war exhaustion is just merely through a bar of green and red. And honestly, it would be much more interesting if the wars actually had some stakes to them, where you actually did have to appeal to your populace. But there is one thing, though. I did have an experience where I wasn't doing very well in a war, and generally speaking, when you lose territory in Stellaris, and a lot of it, the militarist faction becomes a lot more popular with the citizens. However, this mechanic should be expanded. I mean, if you have an egalitarian empire, they should not just be willing to let you throw as many ships and manpower at a war that may not be actually accomplishing anything. If you're an authoritarian government, there should be other consequences. Also, during a war, honestly, like if you're fighting against, say you have a multicultural empire, and you're fighting a war against, say, you have a species that has in your empire, and you're fighting a war against their empire, they're where they originated from, they're the species. They should not just be willing to go along with being admirals and generals attacking their own species. I mean, there should be some kind of repercussion for doing that. I mean, in Civilization 3, which I always come back to because I think it's a great way of simulating war in a video game, the video game medium. In Civilization 3, there was a mechanic called nationality. So every citizen that's represented on the screen of the city screen in Civilization 3 was of a certain nationality. There could be your nationality or other nationalities. So in Civ 3, if you say you conquered a city, and it would take a couple generations for those nationalities and that populace to assimilate. But if you say you declared war on that same empire that those people were citizens of, for example, they would get unhappy with that and start protesting. It could cause civil unrest. I would like to see something like that in Stellaris, because right now it is way too easy to have a multicultural empire where you have all these races, and if you're fighting, like, say for example, you have a race that is generally speaking more authoritarian, but you have some of them, they're in your empire. How is it that they can just so easily go along fighting their own species? I never understood that. It makes no sense to me. So that's definitely a mechanic that needs to be improved. Also, I think that you should be able to destroy star bases in Stellaris, because right now it's just about you should be able to destroy star bases, because I just hate how the game becomes a whack-a-mole game, where if you move from one location, the enemy comes there and they take over the starbase that you just took over. You should be able to destroy starbases in this game. Really annoying mechanic. Also, the way how the game does battles, I think that battles like land combat, I think there should be multiple continents that you can fight on in different terrain. It would add a lot more complexity and make the land battles more interesting. So yeah, that's what I would like to see for that. I think right now that the game, I think that we need to have shipboarding, which would be very interesting. It would make the game tactically a lot more interesting, because right now it feels like to me that the game once again is a whack-a-mole. I mean, look at this. I mean, for some reason AI is always able to warp out of battle, and you can only blow up a couple of the ships. I never understood that. It is way too easy. I mean, a lot of the battles are, just warping out. It doesn't make any sense, because in the game you can't travel that fast, and yet the AI, the ships are able to essentially warp out of combat it just doesn't make any sense with how the game works. It's really annoying. It needs, like, if a ship, like, you can, like, they needs to take time for the ships to warp out. So yeah, I mean, the way how it works, it really is a whack-a-mole game, honestly. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on the combat in Stellaris. So leave some comments and subscribe. Thank you.